In yesterday's video, we talked about Navik the Red, his early brutal rise on Rhodia, and then his later career as a New Republic senator. I also made this animation for it. This is the Customs Corvette, one of the ship types used in the Rhodian Home Defense Fleet. Isn't it cute? But what isn't cute is that I mentioned towards the end of the video that when Navic appears as a senator in the New Jedi Order series, in one instance his name is misspelled as Narik. I've never thought too much about this, but what I have learned since yesterday is that this being Star Wars, Narik was then retconned into his own character, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Basically, we're going to be looking at whether the character Narik in New Jedi Order is the same as the Navic who ruled Rhodia. There are 5 main relevant sources for this. We have 3 of the New Jedi Order books. Dark Tide 1 Onslaught, which came out in February of 2000. Then there's the New Jedi Order Agents of Chaos 2 Jedi Eclipse, which came out October 3rd, 2000. This one's by James Luceno. That's relevant. And thirdly, we have the New Jedi Order Balance Point by Kathy Tyers, which came out October 31st, 2000. Also relevant. For the other 2 sources, in 2003, we have the Galactic Campaign Guide, one of the RPG sourcebooks. And finally, 2008, we have the Complete Star Wars Encyclopedia. There may be other references of the Narik name, but I'm not sure where they would be. These are the ones that specifically come up on the talk page on the Wikipedia entry for Navik the Red. So here's the basic timeline. The first of the 3 books, Dark Tide, comes out and it mentions a Rhodian senator, although not by name. Then in October of the same year, we have Agents of Chaos coming out, where James Luceno references Navic. Specifically, the senator's name in this book is Navic. Later that exact same month is when Balance Point comes out, and this book references the character Narik, repeatedly using the same spelling. Both are referenced as the senator from Rhodia, and they both take place very close together, so it seems fairly certain to me that this was intended to be the same character. And since the Navic spelling came first, it seems like that was the intentional one that James Luceno was using. One of the things with James Luceno is that he is the author that is most likely to pull in references to other things. It's honestly one of the most fun parts of reading his books, whether this is the Darth Plagueis book or it's his New Jedi Order duology. Both of those are full of references to especially earlier works and obscure works. So I don't think it was just a coincidence that he named some new character Navic. And I think he is the one who most likely came up with the choice to use this name, which I think just got kind of mistranslated and lost in the shuffle when Balance Point was coming out. So Balance Point would have been written by Kathy without necessarily having been able to read a full copy of Agents of Chaos. Luceno also had a broader organizing role on the New Jedi Order series, so it does seem like he would have been the one making these choices where there were those choices to make. Also importantly, in my opinion, is that part of what they were trying to do with the Senate in the New Jedi Order series is portray them as kind of being disconnected from what the ideals of the rebellion were. Many of the New Republic politicians are very corrupt in this series, they're not trying to help the refugee crisis that's going on, and many of the main characters go on to kind of form this new rebel cell within the New Republic government, even though that plotline gets a little bit dropped towards the end. These are called the Insiders. So I think Navic being the senator for Rhodia goes beyond just being a kind of choice to use a pre-existing name into being something that was intentionally done because of who that character was. It's a nod and a reference that most people aren't going to notice, but I think it's one that makes sense thematically. And I think if you leave NJO having read both Agents of Chaos and Balance Point, seeing this name referenced, I think it's pretty clear they're, of course, meant to be the same character in context there, but as happens with many situations in Star Wars, when there's a typo or a small error like this, it's jumped on as an opportunity to create a new character or new content. And I do want to say going in, this is something that I'm generally in support of, but let's talk about what exactly happens. So the first example here is in 2003, the Galactic Campaign Guide from Wizards of the Coast comes out as part of their tabletop RPG. This book includes a bunch of tables with possible character names for a variety of species, and one of those species are Rhodians. So if you go to this table, you'll see that there are entries for Narik and Navic. The authors were almost certainly looking for as many names as possible to fill these out, and I think there's even a reference within this split to the fact that the Narik name was originally a typo. The name Navic is given the meaning dark, while the name Narik is given the meaning bright, so they are connected in that they are opposites. If we jump forward to 2008, though, there are character entries in the complete Star Wars encyclopedia for both Navik the Red and for Narik. So this does officially separate them into two different characters, and I'll show the full bios here. So this does officially separate the Narik of the New Jedi Order from the Navic, which again, normally I'm okay with this kind of retcon happening, where a typo is turned into something new, or a misspelled character name is turned into something new. This also happens with Threkken Horm, who becomes Threkken Thorm in his other appearances in Dark Apprentice and Champions of the Force, and he then gets confirmed as being a separate character, and I think that one's very funny, so I'm perfectly happy to have it happen elsewhere. And in many circumstances, if something like this were to come up, and then I learned about it afterward that I just assumed was a typo that never got addressed elsewhere, then I would just private the video, be sad, and move on with my life. But I think this is a situation where the retcon isn't quite as clear as it could be. The biggest sticking point for me, which is why I think it's still worth talking about in the original context, is that the Narik name came after a book where the Navic name had already been used in the same situation. So if I were to get rid of that video, I'd basically just be redoing that video with all of this information tacked on, and in that case I may as well just leave it up, upload this video, and link it in the comments of the first one. I think it's entirely valid to just say that the Senator in the New Jedi Order series is all Narik all the time, even the places where James Luceno spelled it Navic as he seems to have originally intended, and just go on from there. But I do think that there was a thematic intent behind Navic being Navic in that first appearance. But beyond that, I think this is a fun case study in just the way that lore evolves, and it really goes to show that a lot of this stuff needs to be discussed in context. I've spoken about this in many videos now, but there's usually a feeling that for the Legends continuity, especially for fans who engage with it primarily through lore videos tend to kind of take one interpretation, run with it, and then leave out the stuff that doesn't mesh with that. And it's not because there's like an intention to hide it or something, it's just that you'll usually have some set of things that happen. If something contradicts, you'll decide that one source is more valid than the other, and you'll just kind of relay the thing that is the most valid in your opinion. Not all videos, not all presentations or discussions are able to have all these multiple presentations of things. Even just in stuff that I work on in the Empire War Expanded mods, we can only go with one interpretation when we're putting something in game. We can't represent everything. And if I'm doing a video like the Thrawn campaign breakdowns, I'll do some allusions to behind-the-scenes retcons or changes in how the lore developed, but that's not really the point of those videos, so I'll still just try to give one more cohesive narrative. But I think beyond that, there is value in kind of acknowledging that these things do change and evolve over time, and sometimes they go beyond what their initial purpose was. So even if I think that Navic was originally done this way for a reason, that was changed later, and Narik is now a character that is probably the more valid choice to talk about as a separate New Republic senator from the warlord on Rhodia who existed earlier. The reason I think this is important to acknowledge is because a lot of the times when new retcons come along, people will get this idea that it never used to be like that, it all used to be consistent, and now everything's ruined, and now this whole book doesn't count or something. In my experience, there are a lot of people who think that if you want to portray yourself as a true fan and the defenders of the lore or whatever, you have to immediately decry everything that breaks what came before it. But I don't think you can really analyze any of this starting from that position, because that's when you get to throwing basically everything out to some extent. Any kind of analysis has to start from the position that lore is and always will be messy. That's going to do it for today, though. I did this without a script, so I thought this would just be like a 2-minute video or something, but now it's almost as long as the original was. Oh well, thanks for watching, like and subscribe and all that stuff. I didn't insert a joke because I didn't think I'd make it this far, but hope to see you next time. Bye everyone.